Okay, welcome everybody. I've got 2 o'clock Eastern Daylight Savings Time. This is your host, Jennifer Brennan. Welcome to the NASA Operation IceBridge Data Portal, a gateway to a wealth of polar data webinar. And again, this is Jennifer Brennan. While everybody's logging in, we have a couple of polls at the bottom left and middle portion of your page. We'd like you to answer if you could take a minute. There is not a submit button for the multiple choice and the multiple answer polls. So once you've selected your answer, just know that your vote has been registered. If you selected other as your answer for either of the 2 questions for the 2 entry polls, you will have an opportunity to specify by answering 2 follow-up polls once we move to the agenda in a few minutes. Okay? So thank you for joining us. I am the User Support and Communications Lead for the NASA Earth Science Data and Information System, or ESDIS project here at Goddard Space Flight Center. And I'd like to begin by going over just a couple of housekeeping items that are related to the webinar. So today we're broadcasting audio both through the computer as well as via telecom. So if you're listening in by telephone, be sure to mute or turn off your computer speakers. And for those of you using PCs, you should be able to left-click to mute, and for Mac users, you would be able to do the same thing by going into your settings. Okay, if you're listening in by telephone, be sure to mute. Oh, I've already covered that here, muting your speakers. So once the webinar starts, what I will do, and I have done just now, is place the conference in silent mode, so the speaker will not be able to hear you. If you have any questions or any issues, in the bottom right-hand corner here, you see the Q&A pod. That works like a chat. So please feel free to enter any issues or questions into this area as we go through the webinar itself. The webinar will be recorded. I will send out a link of the recording to the registrants, but also those who are unable to attend today within a few days of completion. The recordings are also going to be posted to our Earthdata Adobe Connect catalog, and I do plan to provide that URL to all of you at the end. The presentation files will be available for download at the end of the webinar. We have a file sharing pod, so you'll have an opportunity to download, as we complete the webinar today. It'll include the agenda and all of the presentation files. The webinar itself is 1 hour long. There's about 45 minutes allocated presentation and a live demonstration, and then 15 minutes are allocated for the question and answer period. So after our speaker has finished his presentation, we will then move to the final set of polling questions. And just one note, sometimes people drop off during this period. Be sure to stay on the line or stay in the meeting room if you're interested in participating in the question and answer period which follows the polls. We will extend the question and answer period an additional 15 minutes to 3:15 if need be for those who wish to stay on the line. As I mentioned earlier, you do have an opportunity to ask your questions in the lower right-hand corner here, okay? And it works like a chat. So once you type in your question, to the right of that, it looks like a cartoon bubble. You would click that and your question or your concern will be sent. Okay. What we'll do, though, is we'll plan to answer all questions verbally at the end of the webinar. We will not answer questions during the webinar using the raising hand function. That has been disabled. So I'd like to now move along to the agenda. Pull this up here. Uh-oh. There we are. Okay, so the first 5 minutes or so, again, will provide you with an overview of the Operation IceBridge project. We'll spend the next 10 minutes or so providing all of you with a data product overview, and then we will transition to a live demonstration of the Operation IceBridge data portal. Okay, are people seeing the agenda slide? If you could, Let's see here.
This is Steve Henner. Are you guys able to hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
While we're trying to work these technical issues, I can give you guys a little bit of background relative to Operation IceBridge. It's a project that's been going on for several years now that was primarily aimed at providing airborne mission support to span or to bridge a gap that we have between a couple of different satellite missions, namely ISAT-1 and ISAT-2. ISAT-1 was going to be ending its run well before ISAT-2 is launched, which in fact has not launched yet. It's due to go up in 2016. And so NASA, realizing that there were a lot of changes and dynamics in the cryosphere, wanted to get capabilities up there and have continuous coverage even as ISAT-1 was shutting down. And so IceBridge was all about getting aircraft up there with a suite of instruments on them to gather data during that gap period. And so what we've done is, in conjunction with the instruments that were gathering the data, is we've created a portal that makes it relatively straightforward to get to that data. And that's what we'll be talking about today when we get things going here.
This has to be an Earthdata, an Adobe Connect issue. Stand by. We'll see if this is, I started the meeting, obviously, or you would not have been able, were you able to see the lobby? You were because you were participating in the polls, so I'm not sure what happened, so stand by. Reconnecting now.
I'll just talk through them. Yeah, you tell me what's on there and I'll tell you what I'm supposed to say.
It's on my screen. You can go down and use my headset.
Okay, all right. Somebody just stepped in my office and said we have another. Oh, I got it.
Hold on, you're up to presenter. I see you. You are ready to go. Thank you for your patience.
All right, good. Well, as Jennifer said, I am the data manager for Operations IceBridge, located here at the National Snow and Ice Data Center. And as I had mentioned before, the main thing that I want to talk about are the data holdings associated with Operations IceBridge, as well as the portal and how you, the public, can come and access this data. This is a NASA-funded effort, and that means that all of the data that is gathered is publicly available, and NASA would like for you to come and use it. So that's one of the things that we want to show today. The outline, I think we've already been over this, but some introductions and background, and then we'll talk about the data holdings and then the portal itself. The National Snow and Ice Data Center is the archive for all of the Operations IceBridge data, as well as other data holdings that we have here. I did want to show you some pictures. Since Boulder is a nice, sunny, arid location, this is what we had last week, and this is what it was like riding bicycles to work. And this is what it's like getting data in here, at least last week anyway. I suppose everybody knows we got a little bit damp, but we are drying out now. The mission itself is, as I had mentioned, is trying to provide a bridge between the various satellite missions, namely ISAT-1 and ISAT-2, and also a European-funded effort called Cryosat. And what we're trying to do is to use or to leverage each of these missions against one another so that we get the best coverage that we can and the best bang for the buck. Now, Operations IceBridge is focused on airborne flights in both the northern and the southern hemispheres. And because it's an airborne mission, there's a lot of flexibility in terms of the instrument suites and the flight lines and the areas that we can focus on. And that makes it a little different, actually a lot different than a typical satellite mission, in that it does provide some flexibility. We can change instruments in and out. We can also have a wider range of instruments because we can, one, have heavier payloads, but two, because we can switch them in and out fairly readily. So over the past year, there have been roughly 7 aircraft that have been used and somewhere around 19 different instruments. If you look at this list here, you can see it's a pretty wide range of instruments. I know there's a lot of acronyms on here, and I can show you on the website where to go to get more information about each of these. But it's also good to know on here, or to note on here,